everybody. This is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. This is the Wizard Podcast, episode 29. We got Lucy here with us, snoring as usual. We got a little Van Morrison going on in the background. I've been working on the shed in my backyard, the little casita. So I had a relapse yesterday. Lucy's really snoring today. So I had a relapse yesterday. I usually try to practice just being in the place that I'm at, doing, whoever I'm with, being fully with that person, whatever task I'm in, being with that task, just being where you are. And I notice all the chatter around, all the Facebook chatter, all the news chatter, all the fear-based responses, fear-based reactions, fear-based, beware. The era of COVID is upon us. Beware. Close your shutters. Stock up on the toilet paper. So, indeed, watching the events of your culture unfold in real time and observing it and noticing it and just paying attention to it and really, working to not necessarily react to it, to allow it to become you, but just to notice it and observe it. Almost like, imagine being an alien and just kind of watching the television show of the world right now. Watching the television show of America from space and just watching it, observing it, seeing it. Oh, there's this group over here doing this, and there's this group over here doing that, and there's this entity of power over here that is just a conglomerate of ideas and minds and momentum and fear. And there's all these things going on, and all these creatures we call people have wrapped words and ideas and concepts and stories around sensations and around emotions, and they have created ideas, and they have drawn lines, and they have created separations inside and outside of themselves, and suddenly it's mine and yours and us and they and we and them. So I try not to get drug into that shit because I've been in that place, and it's just a nasty, icky, attached place. You're always acting out some emotion. I've been there so much where you're just acting out the emotion. Someone says something on the TV, something that comes across your phone. Someone says, texts you something, and it's like, oh damn, those fuckers are doing it again. Oh man, we just get upset, we get frustrated, we get all tensed up from the ideas that are in us and how those ideas are connected to our emotions and to our perception of who we think we are. So we've formed this identity, and we're this thing, and this thing is capable of physically reacting, physically pulsing to a word, or to an intonation in a word, or to a thought, or to a billboard. It makes us easily manipulable. It makes it easy to manipulate people when they will emotionally respond to a series of cues. It's very easy. When you really think about it, when you start looking at language and the flow of language and the attachment of language to emotion, you realize how easy it is to manipulate people. You could start a Twitter channel. You could, call it whatever the hell you want. And you could start making posts, and just the way you manipulate the language dictates who will listen to it. And as you use that language to attach people to ideas that make sense and bring them into things that make sense, and it really does elicit real emotion, and it really is real human beings, and it's real intense shit. And you pull people in with that, and then you just start twisting it a little bit. You start turning it a little bit. You start pushing the behavior a little, seeing how much more you can take, seeing how much more you can get away with. And this has been the way of it on all sides, in all camps, in all places for a long time now. Pretty soon it becomes, well, if they're going to manipulate their reality that way, well, we have to do that just to compete, just to stay in this game. So now we've created this space where the sensations in our body and our emotions have become wrapped in language and ideas, and that's what we call fear. And we wrap that in this ideology. This ideology becomes an acted out network, an acted out conglomerate of people working together in emotional responses. We send emotional shockwaves across the airwaves, and we all listen and we all respond. We respond accordingly to a degree that is astounding when you really start stepping out of it and you notice, oh. For example, I stopped listening to CNN or MSNBC or Fox News a long time ago. I'll pay attention just to dip into that space and to notice how they're saying things and to notice how they're portraying reality, to notice the reality that they're trying to tell. So I listen to CNN or MSNBC or Fox, so I get a sense of the story they're telling. What is the story they're telling? How are they spinning reality? What is the purpose of them spinning reality in that way? And if you listen to those things and you're just listening to them as this is reality, oh, those assholes at MSNBC, they're just a bunch of snarky liberals and they don't know shit. So their reality is wrong, but this reality here is right. Or flip it upside down, same thing. Their reality is wrong, ours is right. Rather than, okay, here's a version of reality that's been being portrayed, and it's on a set of factors and a set of attachments, and it's really on a history and a momentum. And people become attached to that, and that attachment leads to a whole lot of emotional co-creating, and it's just a thing. It's an oozing, amorphous organism, a blob organism of humans co-creating together. The amazing thing is there's also humans who co-create from a place of love, humans who co-create from a place of creativity, humans who co-create from a place of inspiration, learning to say, here's the difference. I notice I'm listening to these things and they're telling me stories, and these stories are a perception of reality that support their worldview. It supports them economically somehow, fiscally somehow. It's a power game and it's a money game. It's a power game, it's a money game, it's a pleasure game for those who are working, the levers of the system. So to step back from that and say, oh, this meat suit I'm in, this spacesuit that I'm in, this body is capable of learning automatically from experience. And I'm constantly learning, whether I know it or not. I'm constantly learning by the emotional reactions and how that turns into language by all the people around me, whether it's on the screen or in real life. So to step back and realize, oh, my body and my mind, my brain, are pulsing in certain patterns. It's convulsing and pulsing in certain patterns. And those physiological, emotional convulsions, responses, pulses, are from a beautiful patchwork of algorithms What does that mean? A whole bunch of rules that govern the way our body responds to certain stimuli. So we hear a certain sequence of words, and our brain has attached emotion to the ideas that those words signify, and we pulse, and now we're threatened. Now we're standing our ground. So there are rules, there are algorithms, there are stories that we tell ourselves, but those stories are built into our body. We have to remember, you can't just start in the mind, you have to go in the body. So being able to step back and say, okay, just because my body is reacting a certain way, just because I'm actually experiencing certain emotions, doesn't mean that those emotions and ideas actually govern how I should behave or how I can behave. You can step back and say, okay, I notice I'm experiencing fear. That's a sensation in my body, and I'm asking questions about it, and I'm ruminating on it, and I'm obsessing about it. What if I take a breath and I notice the sensation of those thoughts? I notice the sensation of those pulses in my body. I start observing it like a pattern. I start observing it from a distance, and I notice the pulses of my body that are my emotions and my thoughts and the stories and ideas in my imagination, in my mind. And it's this thing, and I can watch it and I can observe it. I can mindfully observe it and watch it. I can learn to read it. And then I can learn to release those things. And progressively I can practice releasing those sensations. And now I get to just feel in an honest way. Now my body is a vessel that is honed to sense and to feel, to be in touch with the instincts, to be in touch with the honest, sacred masculine, to be in touch with the honest, sacred feminine within, and to find a balance in that. And as an aside, I've been listening to Robert Sapolsky. I've been mentioning him a little bit. It's fascinating to me also how the way that I obsess, the emotions in the body, which are physiological sensations, which are pulses, these energetic emotional pulses in our body, they're physical experiences, and those physical experiences have consequences, and the consequences are cortisol, neurotransmitters and chemicals running through the veins of your body that are designed to keep you safe, that are designed to protect you from lions and tigers and bears. But we start pumping those things into our veins because now we're reacting to our Twitter feed, our relationship, the bills, the fears being allayed to us through the news channels. Our bodies are reacting to those things as if we are constantly under attack. So we're pumping cortisol through our veins and other things, but that's just the simplest way. We got adrenaline, we got cortisol, we got fight or flight responses, but there's nothing to fight or flight. So we sit in helplessness, sitting there thinking like, fuck, I'm scared and I think something's going on and I'm pretty sure, I see what's happening here. But I don't know what to do about it. Should I go? Should I stay? Should I move? Should I pack everything up? Should I go to the woods? I don't know. I don't think I can do that. I have too much invested in this house. I better stay. But now I'm all anxious and I'm all worked up and I got all these fucking things pumping through my body and I don't know what to do with them. And if I try to act them out, I get punished also for that. So I'm just sitting here stewing in the chemical soup of my threat response. And that creates physical sickness. It influences, it makes you susceptible to all sorts of physical sickness. COVID being one of them. All kinds of things. And there are some who think that it's our physical sickness that is trying to teach us something, that is trying to tell us something about the way we live. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone gets sick is not doing something correctly. I am saying that we can get sick from prolonged stress. We can get sick from prolonged obsession and rumination in our mind, which is attached to the sensations in our body, the emotions and sensations, and that we can create a constant fight or flight type response and all these things getting pumped into our system. But we don't have anywhere to channel all that energy. We don't get off the couch often enough and real stand up and intervene in the world around us. And now the momentum that we've all co-created by our passive and active participation in this thing that we've co-created, now we're co-creating in fear. We're co-creating in mistrust. We become a really unhealthy mind, an unhealthy human mind, an unhealthy human collective in some ways. And to bounce back, because I was going down that tangent before, there's the equal and opposite. There's the balance. There is the one who has let go, the one who is working on letting go, the one who is in their kitchen right now, taking a moment to listen to their breath, to notice the sensation of their feet on the ground, to notice the sensation and the pulse in their fingertips, and to even take a step back and notice the sensation of the mind that we call thought, and to realize I don't need to act out those thoughts. In fact, I don't even need to think those thoughts. I don't even need to allow those thoughts. I can notice the sensation in my body as a response that I have learned over the course of my life through all sorts of amazing and scary ups and downs and places that I've been and things I've done. We can all do that. Recognize the sensations in your body are a memory, a programmed memory that comes out in an algorithm and a set of rules and ideas that guides how your body behaves under certain circumstances. So there's the equal and opposite. There is the folks out there who create from a place of love, from a place of creativity, from a place of, I notice that all that stuff wants to act itself out. I notice it's a feeling in my body. But no thank you. I think I'm going to let it go. I think I'm just going to feel it. Oh, there it is. There's that pulse. There's that anger pulse. Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be angry at this person and yell at them, but I don't feel like it, man. I don't feel like it. Fuck it. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to notice it. I'm going to chill. I'm going to breathe. And I'm going to learn when to stand firm. And I'm going to learn when to love and nurture. And I'm going to learn the healthy balance between those two. And I'm going to realize I don't need to act out in this overtly angry, hurtful, outward way. I don't need to repulse love. You can only really hurt and harm other people. You can only really hurt and harm deliberately if you oppose love in your body. I think what hate is simply the opposition of love, because I think love is a natural state of being within us. I think we're built for it. I think it's the thing we tune into. I think it's God. I think we are made to resonate with it, and I think it interconnects all things. You can talk about that in metaphysical terms. You can also talk about that in quite literal terms, scientific terms, energetic terms, physical terms. But I think that hate is the repulsion of love. I think it's forcing love out. It's pushing it away. It's not allowing it in. See, the only way you can look at someone and say, fuck you, I hate you. I hate you so much that I'm going to try to make your life miserable. I'm just going to froth at the mouth and act out, and I'm going to show up at your protest, all angry on both sides. You know? So where I started today is that I had a relapse yesterday. My mom's been bothering me to watch this video that she sent me. Some preacher in Kentucky had a couple dreams. And my mom wanted me to watch this video, and I've been like, yeah. And then, of course, I got all these videos from all these people wearing lab coats saying they're doctors. And before I go off on that tangent, see, that's catching the mind. That's catching the ego going into a thought that is attached to a certain perspective. So that's catching it in the moment and saying, you know what, I actually don't want to go down that pathway. I don't want to make that argument. That's not the ground I want to stand on. The point is, I had a relapse, and I started watching one too many videos, which I rarely, if ever, do. I'm very mindful of the information I take in and the information I put out. But I watched that wonderful, loving preacher man from Kentucky talking about his dreams. And it's, the era of COVID is upon us, and beware the Ides of March. It's like Shakespearean. Sure enough, COVID comes in March, and the calendar flips, Beware. Now, to be fair to this gentleman, because I don't want to be that person, he was very straightforward, very kind, and very honest, I felt. I don't believe he was making anything up. I think he literally set his phone up and started talking, and I think he was being honest and genuine. And that's what I often encourage in people is, like I said in last episode, what if we all just sat back and said, hey man, what have you learned in this life? What has life taught you? Rather than I know more than you and I'm going to always tell you my truth, and if you don't believe my truth, I'm going to be hostile toward you. That goes back to the Plato's allegory of the cave thing we talked about last week in episode 28. But this man was a nice gentleman, and he was a straight shooter, and he was talking about these dreams. And sure enough, I believe people have dreams. I believe people have visions. I believe people have sensations in the body that tell them things. And I've talked to enough people in therapy. I've talked to enough people in this life. I've talked to enough people that have been through horrible trauma. You know what? I've talked to a lot of people, realizing in the moment, talked to a lot of people who have experienced a profound amount of suffering. Suffering leads to this thing we call enlightenment, because you have to, in order to grow through suffering, you have to be able to learn to read, to notice, to observe what the body's telling you, what the mind's telling you without acting it out, because your body and mind were trained, were programmed under such intense and hurtful circumstances, whether it be war, whether it be childhood sexual abuse, whether it be someone that yells at you every 5 minutes and you just can't sit still and just be. So we get programmed by those things, and those things act themselves out. So I honored my mother, and I listened to this video. And indeed, as I said, I do believe people have visions and dreams and sensations and honest moments of something you call clairvoyance. And I know there's people out there whose feet are rooted in their perspective of reality, and they know their reality is firm and strong, and there is nothing other than theirs. But I've gotten to see a lot of different realities. That's what's awesome about the work I've gotten to do in my life, is I've gotten to walk in many, 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 many different types of realities, the worlds that people create and see them. It's really, if you think of it visually, it's like that Duncan Trussell cartoon on Netflix, The Midnight Gospel. All these different worlds that I've gotten to navigate with people that they've created in the context of what has been given to them, and to help people navigate those worlds and to help people work through those spaces and to learn to listen to the body and listen to the mind and to notice that their suffering has, in a lot of ways, given them a massive amount of wisdom. I tell people all the time that have been through a great amount of suffering, you don't know it now, but this is a gift to you. And this is going to move you in a place that a lot of people are afraid to go, and it already has. You've already experienced the worst pain in the world that everyone avoids. So now you could be free if you want. You just have to learn it, to read this body and read this mind, and to accept what has happened, and to recognize that you have the ability to move forward more proactively. You can take charge rather than acting out that victim role. You can take charge and you can become. You can become. You can grow. So I've gotten to work with a lot of people who have been through a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, and have progressively learned how to turn that pain and suffering into wisdom, into awareness, into wiser choices, into more deliberate choices, into releasing the anger and the pain from the past and living in the present moment from a place of love. And that's really the difference of what I'm talking about. Living in a place of attachment, acting out anger and pain and drama and suffering that is rooted in a story, that's rooted in the past. You can close your eyes and imagine yourself tethered. There's 1,000 little cords to 1,000 memories and ideas and experiences, and you're tethered. And you're dragging it around, and when you walk, you take a step forward and you feel the pull of that on your skin where the tether is attached to you, and you feel the pain of it, and it makes you act out, and the journey becomes difficult, it becomes painful, it becomes overwhelming. It's like, I don't think I can take another step. If one more thing happens, I don't think I can do it anymore. And you feel that pain again, and you just, ooh. You got to start clipping those cords. And you got to start releasing those stories. And you have to understand, yeah, shit did happen to me. It was not fair. And I adapted to it in a certain way. And I learned a certain thing. And that became me. And now that's how I live in the world. And now I act that out in my adult life. And I don't know why I don't have good relationships. And I don't know why things keep falling apart, or why I just keep having this pain in my leg, or, you know, why my heart always hurts, why I'm short of breath all the time. And I'm just going to keep pulling myself back to the thought that I started with. So I listened to this preacher, and I listened to the video, and then I listened to another video, and then that was in the context of a lot of the fact that I'm working with almost all of my clients in the present time are really struggling with fear in the context of COVID. Financial fear, a lack of social connection. I am appalled at the effects of the lack of social connection for our children. There are a lot of children suffering right now because they are not connecting socially. They're not connecting with those healthy adults in the schools that might just be the reason they get out of a nasty circumstance, because we need healthy models. So there's a lot of kid at home with a lot of injured, suffering, hurting parents. And those kids are just sitting in front of a screen, listening to the screaming, listening to the sounds, pulsing in their body, getting programmed to go out and live that shit out in the next generation. 10 years from now, that's going to be what you're going to see. 20 years from now, excuse me. So people are learning from these experiences, and they're isolated, and they're hurting, and they're suffering. So at the end of the day yesterday, I would say this happens every day. Something always gets triggered, and I think all the tangents I'm going on is that simply I've had a life story. I have pulses in my body. I have things that get triggered. I had a relapse yesterday in the same way an alcoholic has a relapse when they, you know, drink down the bottle after getting out of rehab or whatever. It's a relapse. It's, oh, I did that thing again that I used to do that I don't want to do anymore. And my body reacted in a certain way and my mind reacted in a certain way. And I told myself the old story and I acted it out. So I experienced fear yesterday. I allowed my mind to go into the future. I allowed my mind to be influenced by someone else's thoughts and words and message. And I felt it in my body and I acted it out. And that's what we all do every day. The difference between an amazing opening up of human society and continuing to act out this shit is all this. It's that. It's the difference between acting out the sensations in your body and telling stories about the sensations in your body and listening to a preacher in Kentucky and making your body pulse in fear because he had a few dreams, which very well may be sort of clairvoyant. And okay, great. He had a dream that COVID was going to happen. At the same time, did he have a dream, or was there already a bunch of rhetoric out there in this? Sorry, I'm not discounting his dream. I don't mean to do that. The point is, yeah, people have premonitions. People have ideas. They have thoughts. Right now, all of us, if we're getting rid of denial and living in full honesty, which most people are not, all you got to do is just open your eyes up and see the pattern of what's happening in the world to know shit is shifting, shit is changing, shit is moving. And there are structures of entities of power that are at war with each other, and we're all part of that. We're all wrapped up in it, and we're all attached to it. And the difference between falling into that and creating something different is this thread that I've been trying to navigate through here, which is to be the one who notices your breath, to be the one who decides to stop acting out your anger, to be the one who decides to stop acting out the generational trauma that has been passed down to you from your father and your mother and your grandfather and grandmother and from your community, from your whatever. You don't need to act it out. We don't need to act it out. We don't need to co-create from a place of fear. I appreciate that gentleman for being so honest about his dreams. But I don't want to put anything into the world from a place of fear. I don't want to act or create from a place of fear. And I believe truly that Christ, the story of Christ, and I don't mind talking about this because this is something that I grew up with. It's something that's been a part of my life. I have a prayer life. I'm very private. Well, obviously not in this moment, but it's something that's been a part of my life. And I also have a meditation practice. And I also like to shoot bow and arrow sometimes. And I like to go fishing. And I like to hike. And I like to make art. And we can be anything that we want. We can be all the things we want to be. I get to be a father. I get to talk to you. So I believe that the true story of Christ, the story of Christ within, is that Christ is the divine inheritance, meaning God within. And in my honest journey, part of what I talked about last time was, what do you really know? And I basically last podcast I said, it's really good to read the words of those who have come before us, who have been willing to live far outside of the cave. I was using Plato's allegory of the cave to talk about this. And, to live far outside the cave. And I was talking about Jesus, and I was talking about Buddha, and I was talking about Ram Dass, and I was talking about Robert Sapolsky, and I was just talking about different people who clearly make a choice to live outside of societal norms. Nietzsche talked about that a lot. So I was referencing that and talking about that. And that was the idea that, yeah, we would benefit from paying attention to the words of those individuals rather than paying attention to all the rhetoric that is being forced upon us from a place of fear. So that was one part of last week. And the other part was, what do you really know? And what do I really know? And if I really sit here in the moment and I notice the sensations of the body and I notice the sensations of the mind, and I sit here in my honest moment, being fully, clearly, honestly in this moment and allowing love to be, that is what I think is God within. That is what Christ within is to me. It's being fully in love in the present moment, resonating from a place of love, being in this place of awareness and being. Now, that doesn't mean that my body won't pulse and act out a feeling of fear or a feeling of anxiety or a feeling of, oh, I had this thought and this thought reminded me of this thing, and this thing I'm supposed to, oh shit, I forgot I'm supposed to be worrying about that. That happened earlier, literally while I'm doing the podcast, and I get that pulse in my pocket because I got a text message. Ooh, I bet that thing, I got to follow up on that thing. These people are having a tough time. I got to go just hold that space with them. Okay, there's a pulse, there's a feeling, there's a sensation. I can notice that. I can slow it down. I can just be with it. So I believe that if you are going to live from a place of the teachings of Christ, and if you're going to live from a place of Christ within, if you're going to allow God to become you, if you're going to allow Christ to become you, then creating from a place of fear is not Christ-like. Living from a place of fear is not Christ-like. Treating your neighbor from a place of fear, from a place of repulsing love, from that place of hate, it's not Christ-like. And all that I know, when I clear the space of all of the knowing, when I clear the space of all the words and the ideas and the language and all the things that are wrapped around the sensations in the body, when I notice from the place of my own body and my own awareness and my own sensation and my own observation, I notice that when I clear the space of the attachment and the acting out of anger or fear or lack, or what I experienced yesterday, watching a video and having all these other pulses in the context of all these other things that are going on, and all of a sudden I'm telling a story and I'm acting it out. Just realizing I don't need to be in that space and I don't need to act that space out. And that whether you want to tell that God story or not, whether you want to tell that spiritual story or not, what I've noticed is when I clear that space of all the icky shit, when I love myself through it, when I heal through it, when I accept it, when I release it, what's left is a profound desire to serve and to love and to create. And that's basically where I focus my attention. Service, love, creation. Or maybe service and creation in a context of love. That's it. That's where I focus my attention. And when I get caught up in fear like I did yesterday, the only answer that I can come up with, the best possible answer I can come up with, is that. Do I want to fall into the trap of fear and get caught up in the cesspool of fear that's being stirred right now by all of them, all the big news channels, all the political interests, all those big economic interests? What are they doing to us? Stirring the pot of fear. oh, this side and that side, and the claws are out, and they're nabbing at you, and you're getting caught up in it. We don't need to do it. Yesterday, at the end of the day, I remembered I don't need to do that shit. And I did a long meditation, and I committed myself to love. I committed myself to being grounded. I committed myself to being strong and prepared, but to living and loving in the present moment. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for riding the tangents out with me. This is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. Thank you, Kathy, for this coffee cup. It's lovely. Dr. Mark Jesinoski, this is the Wizard Podcast, episode 29. Take care, everybody.